Excellencies, at this point, this brings us to the session with the media and what we have agreed with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. This particular session will be moderated by their Director of Communications, Mr. Clayson, and what we agreed was the questions will be exclusively directed to the panel and not the delegations. And I think we'll encourage Mr. Clayson to make sure that all questions are directed to the panel and Dr. Naledi Pando, but not the delegations. Over to you, Mr. Clayson.
Thank you very much, Excellencies. So we're doing 3 questions. Monkoena, please start. There's a roving microphone there next to you. Just introduce yourself first.
My name is Sophie Mokoena from the South African Broadcasting Corporation. My question relates to women. I see men in ties and suits, no woman. One thing that the UN spoke about is that you will not have a lasting solution in terms of peace if you exclude the majority of the population. And in this case, you are talking about women. Why? And lastly, for peace to hold, you have to monitor and ensure that those who have a hand in fueling the conflict are on board. What's going to happen to Eritrea that's being accused of meddling in the affairs of Ethiopia, and the Ethiopian government also saying that there are international forces that are meddling in Ethiopia's affairs? Thank you.
Juanita?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Conita Hunter from News 24 in South Africa. There has been a description of these talks today as being very tense over the past few days. If you can just give us an indication of what were some of the sticking points that threatened these talks from collapsing. And secondly, as part of this agreement, will the federal government reverse its decision to designate TPLF as a terror group? If any one of the members of the panel can please shed light on that. Thank you very much.
Let's go to Reuters. That'll be the last question for this round. There's a microphone right there.
Tim Cox from Reuters. My understanding of this agreement is that you've agreed to stop shooting at each other, but obviously there's a lot of questions about what else needs to be agreed upon. I wondered if you could, if either delegation could talk about what still needs to be agreed and whether any progress has been made on that before you have a kind of full-blown political settlement. Thank you.
The first question is about women probably as part of delegates and how much is the interest of women and children. Just read part of Article 4, which talks of protection of civilians. The parties shall protect the human rights of the civilian population and commit to holding applicable international humanitarian law instruments to which Ethiopia is party. The parties shall in particular condemn any act of sexual and gender-based violence, any act of violence against children, girls, women, and the elderly, including recruitment and conscription of child soldiers and support family reunification. Although and of course in the panel we see we have a distinguished lady, not do we have a lady who was a deputy president of this great country that is also a member of the panel of WISE in the AU, and our contribution into the content, particularly protection for women and children and the vulnerable, was tremendous. As far as delegation is concerned, I will not be able to say anything about that. The other question, again, remember, is that, look, what were the sticky points? President Uhuru, I think you better attend that, and then maybe you come up and say a little bit about women and children. And President Uhuru, you also talk a little bit about what concerns religion. It's part of the question.
Thank you, President. The points that came out or that were read out are only very general remarks about what the document contains. But I think the two parties put in a lot of effort, especially when it came to laying out the principles and the objectives of this agreement. It goes into quite a bit of detail as to how disarmament will happen. It also talks a lot about humanitarian access, resumption of services throughout the country or throughout the affected areas. It talks about the process of reintegrating the Tigrayan region into the federal government. It talks about the return to constitutional order. It talks about the fact that disputes will be resolved politically and not through the guns anymore. It goes further and talks about processes and how women and children and civilians would be treated. But as has been stated, this is not all that needs to be done. We've gone through, for example, how this agreement shall be monitored and verified. The devil will be in the implementation, but it is our strong belief that from the commitment that we have seen from the two parties, they will deliver. And we, as the panel, plus our partners, stand ready to assist and will be part of the verification and monitoring process. The agreement, because it is between two parties, talks about their commitment to resolving the problems of Ethiopia as Ethiopians, and the fact that no party will engage in activities that are detrimental to the other. It talks about the ENDF being the only national army of Ethiopia and its duty and responsibility to safeguard the territorial integrity of Ethiopia. So that again lays out quite clearly that this is an Ethiopian problem to be resolved by Ethiopians. So we still have a lot of work to do in terms of beginning the political process. But the most important thing is the unwritten. And the unwritten is the building of trust and confidences between all parties concerned, and the recognition that the solution to the problems of Ethiopia lie in the hands of the people of Ethiopia. We are here to assist them in that process. And all we can ask and call for is any destructive force from whatever part that seeks to destabilize this process, either from within or from without, should take note that the people of Ethiopia now desire peace and now desire to resolve their internal issues through peaceful means. So I think that is what I want to say, Madam Kumzile. I don't know if you'd like to add something. Sorry?
Yes, thank you. But I would just like to say that the main thing about this agreement is the silencing of guns. And it is also about ensuring that we stop the killing. We were very much aware throughout the negotiations about the importance of stopping the killing. And this is what we are hoping for as we announce this agreement. Also, Ethiopia is a complex country. These two parties are not the only two groups that are relevant for peace to happen in Ethiopia. So we are entrusting them with the responsibility of going back home to socialize this agreement, to make it acceptable, to ensure that many more people embrace and accept this agreement. We know that they cannot convince every single Ethiopian, so they will learn to work with others who may have some concerns about this agreement. And that is why the support of the international community and everyone else who wish peace for Ethiopia is going to continue to be important. We need to accompany them for them to fulfill their task as best as possible. On the issue of women, indeed, I think we've committed to each other on this side as the panelists that will ensure that we always have women in our teams as we move forward, and nudged the colleagues on both sides to do the same. One of the parties has already promised me that in the next time we meet, we will see suits and skirts, and I hope that it's not going to be difficult to make sure that both parties will do the same, because that is important. Lasting peace, as it has been shown, comes when there is inclusion and diversity, and this peace is not going to be an exception. Thank you.
Excellency President Obasanjo, President Uhuru Kenyatta, this brings us to the end of the engagement with the media.